COASTER-net Uncut. I'm, of course, Andrew Marchek from Chicago, Illinois, joined once again by Mr. Pretty Face himself.
Yeah, okay.
Danny Miller. Danny. Oh, so much stuff going on here. But first, I think there's something near and dear to your heart that you'd like to talk about.
Yes, that's right. The voting for the Ride Warrior Choice Awards and the Thrilling 32 roller coaster poll is ongoing right now. We've got only a few weeks left in the voting. Voting is well past the halfway point at this point, and we're doing great once again. Andy, you're going to put the link down in the description to the Ride Warrior Choice Awards website. You head there and download the ballot there. To cast your vote if you haven't already. It is on a spreadsheet format this year, so Microsoft Excel, Open Office. If you don't have Excel, Open Office will work as well. Recommended to do it on a computer, much easier because the spreadsheet does have some background intelligence. You will fill out your general awards, like always, by just putting a little X in the box next to your choice, and then you will be doing your roller coaster rankings on the wood and steel tabs, using drop-down menus. You will first select the park in which the coaster resides that you wish to rank, and then the coaster, and you will do that on up to 75 coasters for both wood and steel, and then you will email it to voting@coaster-net.com. That'll come to me, basically, and when the voting is over, we will run our little algorithm, and we will see what our results are. So, Andy, for the first time, really, in the history of this poll, we are not looking at the results live as the voting is going on. You and I will not know the results until voting closes after the start of the new year.
So it's kind of exciting to see, who's going to win there. And like you said, only a little bit of time left here to get your voice to be heard in this poll. But Danny, we've got something else to talk about tonight. This was a topic that was selected by our people on Patreon a little bit of a while ago. It's been we've
kind of gotten bogged down with the poll, and then we did the tournament of tournament of terrible there. So we're kind of behind on this one, but getting to one that the patrons have selected for us.
And the topic on this evening's Uncut is which roller coasters provide the best views. A lot of times we talk about the intensity, we talk about the speed, we talk about inversions, but there's a whole lot that goes into roller coaster riding in general, and I think it's one of the reasons why we've seen such a backlash towards VR riding is you want to experience the outdoors, you want to experience being able to be 200 to 300 feet up in the air and just look around you, and there's not a whole lot of times that you get to do that in life and
right.
be in open air. Like there's a lot of times that you can go flying, be much higher, but you're encapsulated inside the airplane. There's not a whole lot of times that you can be up so high and be in the open air and be able to experience it and experience things like speed and intensity and all that. So we're going to look at some of the rides that have the best views this evening.
Yes.
And we're not going to talk a lot about specific rides. We're going to talk about maybe classes of rides, maybe parks in general. You'll see what we do here. And the first grouping that I think we're going to talk about here is the stuff at Fiesta Texas. Iron Rattler, Superman, Krypton Coaster. That these rides provide a pretty unique experience because of the quarry and the walls.
Yeah.
It's a completely different perspective.
Yeah, it really is. And, I think it's not only the view that factors into some of those rides at Fiesta Texas, but really how they interact with that view. I mean, the quarry walls you can see them throughout the park, right? I mean, most of the things on this list we're going to be talking about, and this isn't really a list, it's just kind of a group of things that stuck out to us. When you talk about a really good view, you think you're really high up and you can see a lot of different stuff and you can see a lot of cool stuff. Fiesta is a little different in the sense that you're not necessarily super high up, but it's the fact that you're going around a space that has really nice landscaping and really nice scenery. And, there's a lot of rides that go through nice landscaping and nice scenery, right? But this is more unique with the quarry walls, the colors, how those two rides in particular, Superman and Iron Rattler, really interact with those walls. I mean, Iron Rattler goes down along the side of it, up over on top of it, through it even. Superman uses it to create some really unique elements that other floorless coasters don't have. The wraparound drop, that helix. Even the mid-course brake run is right up against that wall there. You feel like you could reach out and touch it if you're on the left side of the train there on Superman Krypton coaster. So definitely two rides and a park that have a really, really unique setting, and I think that's why we put them in this group here.
Absolutely, like you said, like the way they interact, especially on like Iron Rattler when it comes off that quarry wall, towards the middle of it. You do first you go up to the wall, you do the different inversions up there, and then you come down off of it back through it, and then you go through the mountain or the quarry. And it's just, you don't get that a whole lot. Like you go through fake mountains a lot on roller coasters. There's not a whole lot of rides I can think of that you go through real rock work holes.
And it's real impressive. And the only thing that's disappointed me about it was last time I went there this past year, they didn't have the lights or fog going in there. So I thought that was kind of a cool aspect the first time. I don't know if maybe we just caught it on a day where they didn't have the lights on. I always thought that was kind of cool. They kind of had the red, white, and blue in there. But even so, it gets cold when you go in there too. So, it's kind of neat, but definitely a cool visual. Iron Rattler is almost one of those rides where the daytime actually enhances the ride in a way because of that setting. But it's a great night ride as well too.
The next group we're going to look at is we said, one of the more unique experiences in a location where to ride roller coasters is that traditional seaside pier park. And there's a whole lot of examples of this. You can find, coasters up and down the East Coast, coasters up and down the West Coast that all utilize the ocean, that seaside pier-like setting. And they all look really cool, but we picked two rides that really stood out amongst the rest. And you picked Iron Shark, and I picked West Coaster. So let's talk about Iron Shark a little bit.
Yeah, Iron Shark is real unique if you haven't been down to Galveston. It's a real small pier, the Galveston Pleasure Pier, and Iron Shark is right on the edge of it. And it does this weird dive loop thingy at the end of the ride that's right on the edge of the pier. So when you do this dive loop, you're twisting and all you see is the water there off the edge of the pier because the brake run in that finale is right on the edge of the pier. Hydrus at Casino Pier in Seaside Heights, New Jersey also does a very similar thing where it's right on the edge of the pier. That's a different model. It doesn't have that. It has a helix at the end. It doesn't have that dive loop. But the visual when you're in the front row of Iron Shark is you're staring down into the ocean, and of course the train looks like a shark. So that's really cool. I would also say the Great White at Maury's is a good one too because it actually goes out onto the beach. Most of the structure of that ride is not actually on the pier. It's actually on the beach, which is kind of cool. And that was one of the first wood coasters where they used the steel structure and then didn't paint it back in '96, and they wanted to leave it the galvanized steel color because it looked like a great white shark with the gray. So sort of some natural theming with the galvanized steel there. And then you wanted to talk about the West Coaster, which is sort of in a similar location to the Iron Shark, where it's actually out on the pier. But that's a much different view on that coaster.
Yeah, on that one, I was really struck by that whole, Pacific Park place, the whole pier, because one, I really liked West Coaster because you go up the lift hill and you go away from the pier as if you're traveling into, Santa Barbara back to civilization, but then you make that turnaround after the first drop and you're going straight out onto the pier now. And it seems like if you're not looking, it almost gives the illusion that you might go right into the ocean there if you fall off the edge of the pier. Like I said, this is not a ride that was designed for speed, intensity, and all that. This was purely for aesthetics, and you see it in so many different, video packages. Anytime a sports team, goes out to LA, there's always pictures of the pier out there.
It's in movies, commercials. It's even in if you're a gamer and you've played Grand Theft Auto 5, it's in there in I think it's Los Santos, I think is the name of the city in GTA 5. They have Pacific Park there with the West Coast. I think it's called Leviathan in the game. I have the game sitting over here. I've played it before. It's called Leviathan in the game, and you can actually ride it in the game too, which is kind of neat. And the Ferris wheel is right there. So it's a pretty accurate representation. But the lights on that ride are real cool, and the fact that you can see all the other rides too. It's very traditional boardwalk.
And I think one of the coolest parts is that it doesn't have that speed that you would expect, that you might be looking for in other roller coasters. So it does give you time to take in everything, that you can look at the beach down below, you can see the water, and then you do the little helix at the end. That it gives you enough time to take in everything at a proper speed that you can really, I don't know, it really struck me when I was out there, and you really felt like you were on the ocean, on the Pacific Ocean, and doing something that you probably wouldn't do anywhere else. Like you could put that in any park and it'd be like, okay, nobody cares about that ride. But the fact that you're on this pier going out into the Pacific, I think that's what makes that ride, a little bit more special than the rest of them.
It's kind of like the West Coast version of like the Coney Island Cyclone in terms of like everybody knows the West Coaster in Santa Monica on the Santa Monica Pier. Like everybody knows that coaster. Everybody has seen that coaster. And even I think coaster enthusiasts, if you don't know what we're talking about, if you don't know what ride we're talking about, go to RCDB and search Pacific Park and look at pictures of the Santa Monica West Coaster, and you're going to know what coaster we're talking about. You're going to say, oh, I've seen that in that movie, or I've seen that in that TV show, or I've seen that in that video game. You know this coaster. I guarantee you know this coaster.
So that was our second one on our list. Our third one is one of your rides, not so much one of my rides, and that is Boulder Dash. And this is, once again, getting back to what we thought was unique about Fiesta, was the quarry wall. Now here we have a wood coaster that's literally built on the side of a mountain. And as you're going up the lift hill, it is, blatantly obvious that you're on the side of a mountain. You basically traverse down the entire mountain, and throughout the whole thing, you get really cool visuals. Not so much of, you ride the beast and you're in the middle of the forest. This is a little bit different. You feel like you're in the middle of the forest, but you also get the distinct idea that you are on the side of a mountain, almost like an alpine coaster or something like that. Even more so because everything's built up so well around it.
Yeah, the original mountain coaster, right?
Yeah. Right.
But the neatest thing, one of my favorite things about Boulder Dash, it's a really good ride. But one of my favorite parts of Boulder Dash is riding up the lift hill, because the lift hill is really steep, because it goes up the side of the mountain. And Boulder Dash is no more than maybe 20 feet off the ground at any given point in the ride. Maybe in the return run, it gets a little bit higher. But on that first half of the ride, you're no more than 10, 15 feet off the ground at any given point. And going up the lift hill, you are so close to the ground. You're maybe no more than 5 or 10 feet off the ground. Going up the lift hill. And when you get up to the top, you make that slow right-hand turn, and it's like you could literally reach out the side of the car and nearly touch the ground. You're that close to the ground, and it's very quiet except for the clickety clack of the lift hill. Kind of echoes when you're going up there, and it's really a neat experience. And then to come just storming down the mountain, and then all of a sudden there's the park, and then you're up in the mountain again. Then there's the park again. Then you're up in the mountains. It really is a cool experience. Whether you like the ride or not, it certainly is one of the best settings. It kind of took the idea that was the beast and really made it really kind of made it better in terms of using the terrain to its advantage, because the Beast is one of those rides where the Beast doesn't have a mountain to work with. It doesn't have tons of big hills. It's a lot of smaller rolling hills. So the Beast starts up high and then just kind of keeps going down and down and down and down, and then takes another lift hill back up to the top for the finale. Whereas Boulder Dash actually goes up and down and up and down and up and down over the different, I guess, topography of the mountain and of the grounds that it's on. So, in my mind, Boulder Dash sort of perfected what they were trying to do with the Beast.
Mm-hmm. And, I as much as I am not a fan of Boulder Dash and what it does as a roller coaster, I did appreciate the setting and what it was trying to do and the uniqueness of it, because it is a very unique roller coaster. You don't see a whole lot of this stuff. Like, I guess now with all these alpine coasters, but even the alpine mountain coasters, going up the lift hill, you feel like you're going up the lift hill, but they've built them up so much with supports and track.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes you don't feel like you're actually on a mountain coming down it either, right? With these alpine coasters.
Yeah, because there's a lot of small drops and it's mostly turns and you're gradually going down. I mean, Boulder Dash has the big drops and it has what I like to call the oh shit drop in the middle of the outrun, where you think you're going to go down a small hill and then there's the really big hill in the middle of it. And there's something a little bit different about being on a wood coaster in the middle of the woods. Like your Ravens, your Legends, your Boulder Dash, even your Beast to a point. I mean, there's something different about being on the wood coaster in the middle of the woods than a steel coaster going through them. I mean, even at Kings Island, if you were talking about Mystic Timbers versus Diamondback, there's something a little different about being on the wood coaster in that type of setting.
Absolutely. So the next group we're going to talk about is a lot of the stuff at Cedar Point. That Cedar Point actually offers a lot of coasters that have some pretty great views on them. The original view on a roller coaster was probably Magnum, right? Like Magnum XL 200. You're looking out right over Lake Erie. The rumor, or the saying always was at Cedar Point that on a clear day at the top of Magnum, you could clearly see Canada. Right. I don't know if I've ever seen Canada, but people have claimed for years that they've seen Canada from the top of Magnum. So you obviously get some pretty awesome views being right there on the lake. And then I really think with Valraven really stepped up the game for the view.
Because you get a nice panoramic view of the whole park and then the beach and the water in the background. It really ties everything together that is Cedar Point.
In Valraven, and the whole point of the dive coaster is to get that view. And if you think of the other dive coasters, because we considered putting dive coasters in general on this list, but you get to SheiKra. And SheiKra has a nice view, but it's spoiled by Tampa.
I mean, Griffin and SheiKra both have nice views and widespread views, but there's nothing particular to really look at. You don't really see anything. It's not like, when I go to the top of Griffin, I have to go look at the Anheuser-Busch brewery that's over there. When you're on top of Valraven, it's, I get to see the lake, I get to see the beach, I get to see all these other roller coasters, right? And
especially at sunrise too. If you can get on Valraven right there early in the morning, I remember, on media day, we were there early in the morning, very, very dark, Dwayne and I. We rode all day long, and it just so happened that as the sun was coming up. Go check out our POV there, because it was right as the sun was rising. And I'll tell you what, that's an experience that they do those sunrise thrill tours now, and people pay big money to walk up those steps and go see that view. But we had it as the ride was running, and I'll tell you something, it is spectacular to see the sun rise over Lake Erie like that. And it's something that. There's some memes out there about me in that picture.
Oh, yeah. Yes, there are. There's plenty of those.
Something to the effect of, is on Valraven, seeing a beautiful sunrise, can only see Raptor,
Yep.
there again.
Yep. You weren't even looking at this beautiful view you're talking about. You were just looking over at that green pile of shit over there.
Oh, that green pile of awesomeness, yes. But you look at Magnum, you look at Valraven. You mentioned Gatekeeper too. We had some pretty nice views on that with the sun rising as well.
Yeah, especially on media day with the sunrise, and you can't get that true sunrise view, during a normal day. There, you have to be there for a special event like that. But the Gatekeeper sunrise view is really nice because it is right there on the beach too. And if you're on the left wing, you can really look out and just kind of take in the water and the sun reflecting off of it. We did that many times on media day for Gatekeeper years ago. So, definitely, there's definitely a lot of options when you're talking about
pretty much every ride there. You look at things like, Millennium Forest Dragster. You don't get the optimal view out over Lake Erie, but you do get definitely great views. Even Steel Vengeance to some extent nowadays.
Yeah.
There's just some really great views on the rides there. And I'll tell you, I tell this story all the time, but one of the coolest things is when the fog rolls in too. Like I had that one Magnum ride where you go up into the clouds and then you come down and it's completely clear on the ground and you go back up into the clouds. We kind of had, the great fog as well with Steel Vengeance.
The great Steel Vengeance media day fog.
Yeah, like that stuff is really cool. Like, we got to the top of the lift on Steel Vengeance and you couldn't see anything on the ground. It was all white up there.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool.
You couldn't see the top of the ride from the bottom. You couldn't see the ground from the top. You couldn't see Dragster from anywhere.
No, like seriously, right? And because of the lake, you don't get views like that at every park. That's not something. It happens, I would assume at some places, and maybe to better effects at pier side stuff. But I'll tell you, some of the best views I've had was at Cedar Point. So that's always a cool one to talk about. And then the last one we're going to talk about here, which I think might be the best single ride view experience, maybe one of the only rides I've ever been on that actually I think is completely hurt and gets a lot worse as you ride it at night. And that is Cheetah Hunt. Because I think half the experience of Cheetah Hunt is being able to see everything. At night when it's pitch black, I rode it, I was completely unimpressed by it. I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome. We're going to be going out, into the Serengeti, all pitch black. And it was just okay, well, it exposed Cheetah Hunt as maybe not.
Because Cheetah Hunt is the ride where, again, much like Boulder Dash or so even like I said with the rides at Fiesta, in a way, you really want that visual. I mean, we're talking about views, so sometimes the rides that you get the best view on don't make the best night rides for that particular reason.
Mm-hmm.
Boulder Dash may be a bit of an exception. I think that is a very good night ride, but Cheetah Hunt definitely, between the Serengeti, the trenches, all the scenery that they have, you're going through the bushes and the shrubs and through some of the foliage. And then, of course, going through the old, Rhino Rally with the, and then you've got the waterfalls and the rocks where you're doing the twisty turns, the S turns through the rocks, lots of head choppers in there that you don't get at night, going over and under the sky ride, going, like I said, into some of those trenches and through the Serengeti. That is part of the theming of what Cheetah Hunt is. It's themed to be a cheetah running through the Serengeti, right? So at night, you don't get any of that atmosphere that helps tie the story of the ride together.
Yeah, and I, like you said, you named all the awesome parts of it, and I just think visually, even from the very beginning with the launches at the front, you go through the trenches, but then even that figure eight turn, if there's nothing to look at there, like that doesn't mean anything. It's not that exciting of an element. It's just basically a get me over to the next element.
Right.
But when you're able to look out over things. And granted, that one might not give you the best views. Once again, Tampa spoils it a little bit.
Wow.
But then everything after that, like you're going out onto the Serengeti, the water. At night you can hear the stuff, but Intamins are so loud to begin with. Going over that track, it's hard to hear the stuff. but when you see it and hear it and experience it, all that stuff just becomes so much cooler, I think, in general. So Cheetah Hunt, I think by far, if I had to rank one of them, I think Cheetah Hunt has the best overall view because it's so integral to the coolness of the ride that you take
Right.
that view away and it's not much of a ride. You put that view in, and now I'm talking about, ranking it somewhere, just because it has that much of an impact, on you as a rider and giving you the feeling of going from zero to Cheetah.
Yeah, and I think we've made the good distinction here of, views and not necessarily theme, right? Because you can talk about rides like, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, Space Mountain, even and if you're talking about some of your bigger roller coasters that are more heavily themed, your rides like Montu and even rides like Nemesis and stuff like that. I mean, those are rides that are highly themed. We're talking more about the view of, I guess, the natural scenery is kind of what we went for here. And I think generally, I think we've done a pretty good job of laying out some of the rides that give some of the best views that people know.
Yeah, so that, I think that wraps us up here for this topic. So thanks to all the patrons out there who gave us this idea, something that, we kind of threw out a few options of what would you like to see us talk about. So we came up with a nice little list here of things to discuss with the beautiful views on roller coasters. But there is one last thing that I have to talk about a little bit. This past week, we did lose one of our COASTER-net family. So,
Yes,
Raptor Dog is no longer with us. So, hopefully, we're going to miss him for sure, seeing him on these shows and all that.
Gonna miss his input when I talk poorly about Raptor.
Yeah, I know. Who's gonna bark now and kind of set you in line? He was always there. He was always, doggy on the spot for that.
He always had something. He always had he always had something to say when we started bad mouthing Raptor over here. So,
absolutely.
We're gonna miss it. We're gonna miss him. You had messaged me the other day when that happened. So was very sorry to hear that. So but things happen and life will go on.
Yeah. So as always, thank you for joining us here on COASTER-net Uncut. I'm of course Andrew Barchak from Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
Right on, Ride Warriors.
Thanks, guys. See ya.